everybody. Thank you for joining our podcast, Moms on the Move. I'm Jen Wells.
And I'm Jennifer Stess.
We have Ann Smith with us.
Hey, guys.
The OG of the podcast.
Maybe. I mean,
yes, exactly.
I actually
like that.
It's just the old. Is that what the O and OG stands for? Because I feel I think it's original.
Yeah,
We'll go with the original.
The original.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you started a podcast. I feel like before podcast became like this huge.
Yes and no. So I think I tend to be just working in public relations and social media, tend to be a bit of an early adopter, but for whatever reason, I have 4 children. That's the reason.
Right.
That's the reason for everything.
Children.
I didn't listen to podcasts because I was never alone.
No.
And you can't really trust other people, even it's not so much like 4-letter words, but you don't want your kid in the back screaming like, shut up, you're the worst. So I just never listened to podcasts. And one day I woke up, it's like I kind of came up for air. And I hope that's encouraging to women who are in that like drowning
how
in
old
diapers.
are your boys?
So we have,
and you have a daughter.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do this too when I have, so our kids are 6th, 4th, 2nd, and kindergarten. So that would be 6, 8, 10, and 12.
Okay.
So at one point they were 6, 4, 2, and new. And I thought I was great, but I didn't. I mean, I was fine. But you don't have a lot of like your coping mechanisms are minimal and you don't have a lot of free time. And so I didn't listen to podcasts whatsoever. This whole I remember watching SNL, obviously, while I was like nursing a child at 3 a.m. or something, and seeing a spoof of the Serial podcast and being like, I wonder what a podcast is like. I wonder what those people are talking about.
That was like my first one I ever listened to.
Still haven't listened to it. To the point that like I just decided. Like,
oh my gosh.
And I think they're multiple. Like they have kind of taken on multiple seasons, multiple stories. But I had never listened to a podcast, and I thought, I think I should start one. And my husband was like, "Do you think you should listen to one first?" Wild thought. And the first and only podcast I listened to before mine came out was a podcast about starting a podcast.
Wow.
That was it.
Yeah.
And now I listen to like 945 and little bits and pieces and at like extremely high speeds. Other people can't listen with me. I'm like, move it along.
Yeah.
We don't have time.
Well, I remember when you started it, I messaged you and I was like, I have a weird thing with voices, but I love your voice.
That's why I really appreciate that, but I can't listen to my own voice on the podcast. So when I edit or if I'm listening to anything else, I listen at 1.5 speed. I probably won't watch this. That's the only way I got myself
I'm a
here.
little bit.
But it was just to be like, you don't have to watch this. That's crazy. That would be nuts. I can't. But I'd been through a lot of really hard stuff. Our children, I guess this was 3 years ago. Y'all are probably better at math than me. So our kids were like 9, 7, 5, and 1. And we'd been through a lot of excruciating, really hard stuff. And it had changed my daily conversations from kind of meetings with clients to cocktail parties remember we used to have that, like used to be a thing that happened like 3 years ago before COVID. And I found myself having these really meaningful, heartfelt, tear-jerking conversations in a corner of a party and thinking like, other people need to hear this, or I would quote it or try to like summarize it for other friends in similar situations. And it was always, just like y'all do, like women who are put together and polished and probably intimidate the pants off of someone like me. And yet underneath it all, there's undoubtedly something they're carrying or have survived or walked through that you wouldn't believe. And it only comes up when you're in that raw place where like, I don't have time to make fun of people. Like I'm here to get to the business of who you really are. And I thought, we'll just slap a mic on it. Yeah. See what happens.
Well, and I feel like when you tell, because like, okay, so to give a little info, your podcast is called But Not All at Once. And I love it because I was telling you, it's like, you can do it all, but not all at once.
And I get that quoted back to me a lot because I'm terrible at remembering it. Yeah. It doesn't help me remember it, actually. No matter how many times I say it in an intro, it doesn't help me. But yes, it's a great theory.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. But you have so many women on, and I feel like the point is that like all moms were very different, but once you become a mom, don't you feel like we're so much more alike? Like it just brings us together.
Equalizer.
Yeah.
You remove all the layers.
Yes. And it's
we're
very
all
and you're
mamas.
struggling. Your feelings are all like
a hot disaster.
You're stressed.
You're not who you were before, but you're still not super sure what comes next and that evolves. I mean, that's just a thing. And I find even, we try to make our podcast really for women in general, because I think, first of all, there are a lot of ways to be a mom. I look at Angelina Jolie and think, like, are we sure she and Beyonce waddled out of the hospital with like an ice pack and a giant maxi pad?
Right.
I don't know that I believe that, but women who adopt, women who foster, women who, I interviewed someone yesterday actually as a follow-up. She went through 10 losses through all manner of hormonal treatments and IVF, and ended up doing surrogacy with a surrogate in India. They were here. And they just did their second round of surrogacy locally in North Carolina and have this beautiful, happy ending that, a decade ago would have been unthinkable to them. But all of that to say, I think there's a lot of common threads. And I think there are women who are pouring into kids, at church, at school, your neighbor that you can call, your sister who doesn't have children, who is like able to devote all this, like, tell me all about your hobbies. Yes, let's get into those dinos.
Yeah.
Tell me about the Paleolithic era, whatever, where you're like, eat your green beans.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of room for women to both equip the next generation and then also realize we're still evolved. Like, life isn't over.
Yeah.
The moment you have another child, like have a baby.
There is times when when I had my third, I actually felt like it was over.
Well, you forget about yourself.
It's a moment.
You forget about yourself. And I think we don't realize that we're doing it because the next phase is to have the babies, if that's what you choose.
Right.
So then all the focus is in how do you raise the babies right, and what do you do, and all the questions that you forget about the transition you're going through.
You forget about it so much.
You forget about
your friends,
the emotions.
who are doing this. You're kind of doing this separately, but it's very, no one's experience is
You're
the same,
changing just like the kids are changing, but that isn't talked about.
No, and your survival's not. You're not going to die if we don't tend to your emotional needs. You might be really sad. We have to feed this baby. Like,
you're a grown up,
so you just shut it down,
right?
And and then at a certain point, I think we have to admit, like, adulting is hard. Like, it is hard to, and I talk about this a lot. There's like this mental, maybe this is just me. I don't believe it is, but there's like a constant mental laundry list of, so Saturday we have a birthday party. Who's gotten that present? He loves soccer. Like, what, we also need to get a card. And do we have the wrapping? Mother's Day, which family are we visiting? All the pieces. And then for my friends who don't have children, like, I still want to connect and reach out to them and let them know, like, hey, I sent a postcard to someone the other day. Like, we live 5 miles apart. I haven't seen you in a embarrassingly long time, but like, I love you and I'm here.
I'm in it.
And there's just, hi,
right?
Like, long distance.
I'm still here.
And that's kind of, I think, the great equalizer is, even if we don't say it, and I'm super intimidated by women who seem to have it all together, and all at once. Yeah. But I think that can be something of a defense mechanism too.
For sure.
The inability to say, like, literally, I just told you my hair's still wet.
Right.
We are rolling in here on 2 wheels. Like, this is the best.
Can't get my dress off today.
Well, just little snippety snap. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I can't do that.
I don't know how to do makeup.
There are a bunch of 14-year-olds on YouTube who could teach me a whole lot. But I watch these girls on TikTok, and I'm like, baby, love. Hey, hi. I could be your biological mother. Right. You're so gorgeous on the front end that, like, the amount of product why? Walk around and be like, look at this glory.
Yeah, right.
Revel in it.
When you don't, before you need it.
No, this is insane. So yes, I think, I don't know how to do makeup. My hair is still wet. And if that detracts for people, from what I'm saying and from the message of, I've been in children's hospitals. I've gotten horrible news. I have been on a tile bathroom floor and thought I will never get up again. And you can't go there and then just bounce back like, have you learned about contouring? Let me show you how to get rid of this double chin.
I'll teach you all about the contour.
Yeah, we're good. I'm just going to live my life. And honestly, I think there are feminist scientists somewhere who add up the number of hours we spend just drying our hair, researching makeup.
That's why you just wear a bun, and every day you just put a knot.
But even like after you have children, I don't know about you, I've lost hair at each of my temples, and we had a baby every other year for 6 years, which we'll debate the sanity of that at another time. But I mean, you would nurse. You'd have that thick, lustrous pregnant hair and feel so great from maybe just here up. And then you have the baby and stuff starts changing, and then the hair just
falls out
every time. And I'm not sure my body knows I'm done having kids.
So the other
you can
day,
come back anytime.
My hairdresser was like, "Did you try to cut bangs?" I was like, "I definitely did."
My boys did though. When I birthed them, that was what they were up to.
Yes,
I would say,
right?
Just as like an estimation.
But I still have hair that it just won't grow. It's just stuck.
Oh, and I can't do it.
I'm thankful for it. It's fine. We'll all
be bald and beautiful.
I love it. I mean, what's a baseball cap for?
Right.
You know what I mean?
I can do that. I can't do the bun on the head.
Yes.
The bun doesn't go with this.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, but the hat works.
The contouring may be required.
Maybe that's That's the way to tell me.
Yes.
So who are some of the guests that were super memorable to you?
Oh, that's such an interesting question. So a lot of people ask, like, how do you find your guests? We're coming up on 3 years of the podcast.
Awesome.
And I have a really big mouth. And I went to one college my freshman year, and then another for the next 3 years, and then grad school, and then worked here.
You went to Clemson, right?
I did.
Yeah.
So I started at Wofford. Then went to Clemson for 3 years, and then did grad school at Carolina. So I sort of took like a grand tour, and I also am not scared to just connect with people, random like cashiers at CVS. So you just find people who have incredible stories, and they are literally in your life right now. So the entirety, I mean, I would say people do pitch their stories to me, which is such a compliment. And I am able to kind of expand what we talk about and the experiences that we share that way. But for the most part, especially the first 2 years, were just like people who had walked through, a friend from church growing up was in the car behind her husband. She was 36 weeks pregnant. You may have seen this in like the actual Daily Mail. And her son was in the back seat, and they were in a horrifying car accident, and she came home with no sons and tremendous trauma, and the story of redemption and peace and forgiveness. Nothing ever takes away that hurt, but to be able to share that story and to share these little boys' lives and what they're building a school. They've built a school in Haiti in honor of them. And so these children's lives are forever changed.
Where was she from? Was she local?
She's from Columbia originally, but she was in Charlotte.
I remember I listened to that one.
And I cry all the time.
Yeah.
Just in general life, but also in
I think I was actually pregnant at the time.
Oh,
and
don't
I was
do
like,
that. No. No, it's, and then, people like we went to Clemson with who, I don't know if you follow the Annie Bonanni Foundation, but this sweet little girl slipped in the garage and hit her head, and her entire life changed, and she shouldn't even be here. And instead of instilling fear of, oh my gosh, what if I'm in a car accident? What if my child slips and hits her head? I hope what we're building is an understanding that there's going to be community that rallies around you no matter what comes next. We went through some excruciating things where and this always puts a lump in my throat, we were not sure, A, that we would bring these children home, or B, what their life would look like. And I remember saying from my bed, because I spent a lot of time in bed in those years, if there's something worse out there, I won't survive it. And I remember my mom saying to me, but you would never have thought you could have survived this. And you did.
You want to elaborate on your story?
Sure. So in a span of from 2012 to 2017, if I had run into you at any cocktail party, I would have maybe not seemed fine, because I am who I am.
Right.
Like, I'm an awkward, talkative disaster, but I would have told you I was fine, and I would have meant it. But we had a second baby who, after days and days of undiagnosed symptoms, that I was literally, the word neurotic was used to describe me at my first visit to the pediatrician about projectile vomiting. And that makes my fist clench now, older. And when I say that if this baby had been our first child, she wouldn't be here. She shouldn't be here anyway. But I had the wherewithal to advocate and not to stop. And to listen to my friends who texted me at 2 a.m. when I was up because she was vomiting so hard. It was coming out of her nose and mouth at the same time, and saying, like, you're not crazy. She was 2.5 weeks old. So she had something called intestinal malrotation and volvulus, which cuts off the blood flow to your bowels. I will send you all the links. Your people can, we've connected with dozens of families since this has happened. And I think several of them only knew about this because of this big awkward mouth and
you shared. Yeah.
The ability to tell that story. So within the next few years, we lost a baby at 4 months. I became,
oh my God, I didn't know.
we became what I called at the time re-pregnant because I had no sense, like it was gallows humor, just complete survival. I found out I was pregnant again, hemorrhaged through that whole pregnancy and was in and out of the hospital. And then he was born 9 months and 3 days after I had a D&C for the baby. Like the math doesn't math. And then we had one last baby who was such a gift and such a surprise. And they believed that she had Down syndrome based on some genetic testing. And all of our children had failure to thrive. We had physical therapists and OTs and people not gaining weight. And I mean, I literally had a hospital scale on the nursery, like on the changing table instead of a changing bed because I would feed him and weigh him. And it was just constant.
You have been on your knees, haven't you? But
I don't think you really feel, you don't have the luxury. I remember someone bringing me a meal in the hospital when our daughter she hadn't eaten in a week and a half. They took all of her intestines through an opening that to this day is this big, all of her intestines out, feet and 40 feet or something. Put them all back in, had to rest it. And she said, I feel like I love my kids too much. Like I would just lose my mind if I were here with these tubes and wires and noises. And I was like, well, I'm like thriving. So don't worry. Could you go? That'd be so great. She was always like, I don't understand why you and your husband both have to be here. Like, aren't you bored? We've stayed at the Children's Hospital a lot. Skull fractures and emergency surgeries and all manner of things. And I've never turned the TV on. We are certainly not bored. I can promise you that. So it's difficult to put the words to it. And I felt like if I have some ability to be changed by that and to walk through my regular life with, and I told a friend this and she said, FYI, because I was like, I think God is just really teaching me compassion and empathy. She was like, hey, I hear you. This is a woman who doesn't have children. When we talk about connecting with all manner of women, this is what I mean. She was like, just so you know, this is not something that's being given to you because you weren't compassionate. You were born compassionate. You're a wonderful person. It's great that you're getting empathy as like a side bonus of the worst thing ever. But let's not walk through life like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give Anne a baby who's almost going to die. We're just...
So she can get
That's not how any of... So it's given me tremendous empathy and the ability now to look back with some distance and see, A, I was never fine. I would have told you I was. B, continue to check on your people. Continue to bring them a Costco rotisserie chicken, send them a Chick-fil-A gift card. Do anything that's Venmo them $5 and say, have yourself a fill in the blank.
When you're in it too, it's very difficult to even sometimes define what it is. Right. Like I had postpartum with my third, and since I didn't have it with my other two, I didn't know. I just kept thinking like
3 kids is hard.
3 kids is hard, and when this happens, I'll be fine, and when this happens, I'll be fine.
You're always pushing that ball forward and never coping with what your circumstances are right now.
And the other thing is, a lot of the times when you are really down, that's when you push people out. I'm like very like I will put my guard up. And
I get in my turtle shell, like I'm basically in a bed, figuratively and literally, like just curled up in the fetal position. And it is a persistent friend who is required at that point too.
Right.
You can't overstep boundaries. I'm not saying you need to barge in my front door, but a little note, the biggest gift I think could be a text that just says like, hey, you don't need to respond, but you should know that you've been on my mind all morning, or I saw this silly video and made me think of you. You don't need to respond. Like getting a text that frees you from... I mean, I have texts I haven't responded to except in my mind.
Yeah, right.
And
pretty sure that's how we like tried for like months to get you on this podcast.
It's completely that way, and that's just how we operate. But to be freed from that expectation of response at all, just like this is literally just a deposit in the bank of friendship. I love you. I'm thinking of you. Here's a postcard. Here's a gift card. Here's whatever. Or even better, someone called and said, "Hey, can I come get my oldest was in kindergarten when I had my fourth, which Okay, that seems like sanity. It seems like wise decisions, but
a hard time relieving control.
But if someone calls and says,
when they were that little, I was afraid to.
I think my oldest by that point, you know, when you have a new baby, the older ones seem like giants.
Really old.
They were tiny babies when you went in, and then you come home and they're like, whoa.
I feel like right now I treat Bennett like he's like 15. I'm like, watch your brothers. While you're at it, make me some dinner, please.
So it's easier to relinquish control from that. Someone would call and say, hey, can I take your kindergartner? Like, we just have a minute to kill. I'm sure she did not have a minute to kill. But I think she was like, this is a woman who can just kick a kid out the side door, pop him in the van, and let me, you know, not have to load up all the other three. So just the smallest gestures. Or take my kids to the park. Meet me at the park with some, you know, Chick-fil-A.
Wine.
Yeah. I don't drink coffee. I need to like mainline some kind of street. Like if there's a cocaine light, like a diet
that
cocaine.
might get me through.
I'd be good with that. But I think just someone who like acknowledges, I see you, I can't fix it. I can't make it better. But like, I'm here. Can I take Bennett? Can we go? And then he can have the time of his life at this super fun play date.
Yeah.
And come home happy. And that makes you happy. Yeah. So
let me tell you, last night I'm making dinner, which I already told her. I was
First
like,
of all, good job. Good job, you.
And I wanted to say that because I want to insert some applause with the editor in the back.
We'll do it.
I never make dinner. And I was like, I made hibachi steak last night.
How the boys like that?
Well, 2 of them liked it, but it doesn't eat meat. He gagged. I made him take 1 bite. Yeah. And anyway, so I was like trying to make the dinner, and the boys were outside, okay? And I said, Bennett, watch your brothers, okay? So Chris gets home, and he goes,
What's happening out there?
Bo is down the street alone. And I was like, what?
That can't be right.
Bennett,
you're fired.
So Bennett goes, I don't know. I told Braden to watch him. And I was like, Braden's 5. He's like, Mom, I'm 7. And I was like, right.
You're an adult.
Like, exactly.
You passed it to me. What's the difference?
So why didn't you get in the car and go get him?
It was basically
you're old enough, right?
So I was like, oh my God, it was.
It was how our parents, I think, grew up, where it was just like a collective 45 kids from the block. Right? Someone knows. Someone will be fine.
Didn't you grow?
The world is your urinal. You'll be fine.
I think about that a lot. Like, it was funny. Me and my friend had this conversation from home, and we're like, do you remember like ever being this like structured that we are today? Like, I remember like my mom would just be like, come home for dinner. Right. And I'd be like, all right.
If those street lights are on, right. Yeah. I better see you back here.
Yeah. But honestly, we'd be like neighborhoods over.
But they knew, I mean, it was a different.
It was
a lot more connected.
I was gone on my bike all day. I had my sandwich and my little bike, with the flowers on the front with the little basket.
Those plastic daisies.
I had all my food in there, and me and my friend would be gone all day. All day.
It's a different world.
It is.
And our kids, I think, well, because we have, and 3 is probably like this too, I think, because we have 4 kids, we are a microcosm. We are our own society. So play dates aren't like a top priority because
they have each other.
Look
too.
around.
Yeah.
Pick one. I don't even care. You got a dog, you got 3 siblings, figure it out. We had an only child. We try to do an only child weekend for each kid annually once they turn 5. Which our oldest would take every weekend. He would just ship them off. But our 3rd child, he's 8, and this is the first time he's done it because he's never wanted to. I'm pretty sure he hated it. He would never tell me.
Right.
But
he's
he
used
was
to
like,
his siblings.
What are we? Are we just going to sit here? We were on the Swamp Rabbit for like a nice long walk. We stopped at the Commons. Like I got him a couple popsicles because we're doing it up big.
Yeah.
And he was like, so are we counting dogs or like what are we? We're just watching. You just sit here and watch. Just you sit.
I'm bored.
This is what we're
so
doing.
bored.
Yeah, I'm bored, Mom.
Last week we had spring break and we had gone to Disney before. So I was like, I'm just done and I'm not entertaining you. Right. Like you guys have to.
That's what Disney was for.
Yes. So like this spring break, it was a staycation in like the most boring sense. But Bennett ended up, the oldest, went to a baseball camp. So Braden was home and I think it was like Wednesday. And I said, all right, well, tomorrow, like just sleep in because we don't have anything going on. He goes,
sleep in. That's adorable.
Is it just us again? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, why? I was like,
well, this is the number of kids I birthed. I mean, this is what you got to pick from.
This is it.
I'm sorry, I'm so disappointing.
It is, and I think it is a good thing for them to miss people. It's a good thing for us to miss them. It's a good thing for them to miss each other.
I don't really get that very often.
Our parents are take all four, do all the things. They go to the zoo. They do the whole rigmarole. And then they come home and I'm like tired just from hearing about it. I don't know how I look forward to being a grandmother and like reporting back about the boundless energy. My mom would always be like, don't worry. Well, we can sleep all night, every night. What's the worst that happens? She's up throwing up in the night. It'll be fine.
That's amazing.
I'm like, okay.
I always tell her, I'm like, I'm just going to bring my kids to your house.
I mean, but don't you, I mean, I think I can already see that we have a little baby next door that just turned 1 and I'm like, this is precious. Like, oh my gosh, and the mom reacted so differently, like to every little noise, like, oh, is she too loud? I'm so sorry. And once you don't have a tiny baby in your home, you're like,
yeah, I'm at the weird phase right now, and this is like a terrible thing to say, but like
7, 5, and 3?
7, 5, and 2.
Okay.
So like Bo's still, but he's infamous at this point. He's a monster.
That's what happens when you're the youngest.
But like my sister has 6-month-old.
Oh.
But like I don't miss it at all. Like she'll hand him to me, and I'm like,
I love him, but
you're so cute. But like it's not far enough distance between like the two where I like ever missed it. Like
I think you need a full decade.
Yeah,
I really do. And I also think it's different when it's yours. You have all those chemicals and you smell that like crack cocaine, like baby head. And it's so, I mean, it gets you through.
It does.
And then you kind of come up for air and you're like, whew.
That was brutal.
Done. People who have them far apart. That's what stuns me. Like you have an 18-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 10-year-old, and then you're pregnant.
Yes. I know. It's all a lot.
There's no perfect.
I think we're both similar in the fact that it was like boom, boom, boom.
I would have told you it felt like so long. Like that 2-year-old.
That's how I am right now. I feel like, okay, we're still doing diapers.
Once everyone is in school, this is our first year with everyone and like all day, every day school. And all day is still, like 8 to 2 or whatever.
Like 1 hour.
School is. And so you're trying to cram these meetings in. And I told someone 2 weeks ago, so I'll call you next week and we'll figure out this, that, and the other for, our strategy and big words. And, and I didn't mean next week because next week's spring break and you should know that.
Obviously.
I meant the next work week. Yeah. And by that I mean now. So I called him and was like, hey guys, you don't have small children. Sorry.
I'm ready to talk strategy.
I don't know. I didn't have the capacity, the bandwidth, the brain cells, and I barely do now, but we just push through. And I don't know what men talk about. I don't know how men function. I don't know how their brains bounce back from all of this. But I know that most women who are at this phase in their life get it. And like, oh, your hair's wet. It's great. You look great.
Yeah, exactly.
It's totally fine.
You're definitely saving some damage by not drying it all the way.
That's 100% why I did
totally it.
There's the positive.
Not at all because I was running behind.
Yeah.
So tell everyone where they can find your podcast.
Yes, they can find me everywhere that podcasts exist in the world, or butnotallatonce.com, on all social platforms, at patreon.com/butnotallatonce, where we have the ability to follow up with guests. So this family, like I said, that I interviewed yesterday, who's got this happy ending, and we interviewed her sort of in the middle of the long haul. And so it's been a gift to be around long enough to follow up with people and to see how their stories evolve and both give people some hope. And then also, like, God willing, most of us are never going to face these kind of world-ending face to the children's hospital tile floor moment. But developing that capacity to empathize, or just understanding that no matter what happens, like, I've seen this play out in other people's lives in some sense, and I've seen them be carried, and I've seen people surround them. I hope that they can kind of tuck that away, whatever it is that comes your way. I mean, it's rich advice, but try not to worry about it. You can't predict it. You wouldn't know what was coming, and it wouldn't make it easier. You would just live it twice.
Right.
I preach that to myself a lot at like midnight when I can't sleep. Like, don't live it twice. No need to be, let's not be crazy.
Yeah.
And that's how I end up with wet hair.
It is a gift to be able to resonate the way you do, though.
Oh,
it really is.
It's, you have to acknowledge the hard, which I'm not great at. I love the silver. I'm developing compassion. Like, babe, You were born with that. But sometimes to be able to see the good and acknowledge it is a beautiful thing. I just want people to also feel the ability to name and validate the hard. Say that this sucks. Mm-hmm. Say I have postpartum depression without shame. It's not a scarlet letter. It's a thing.
You can't help it.
Yeah. So I hope that people, by the time our kids are old enough to have kids, I hope it's wide open.
I know.
All the time.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
This was fun. This was great. We want to thank our sponsors real quick. Leisa Johnson with Fairway Mortgage, Nest Realty, Blackacre Law, Parham Smith Archenhold, Browning Studio, Bodyworks, and Southern Girl Chic for dressing us. So thank you all so much for your support, and we look forward to seeing you next time.